Shalom, and welcome to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. This is a recording of a Shabbat sermon with Rabbi Adam Kligfeld.
I remember a distinct moment early on in my parenthood. It was a moment in which something which now seems utterly obvious hit me like a brick, as if I were confronting a truly novel idea. My first child, Noah, was an infant. The first few months of parenthood felt umbilical. The physical cord had been cut, but there seemed to be no distance between us and her, this blob of human cuteness and also sleepless wailing. Her needs were our obligations. Her wakefulness was our fatigue. Her every new learned movement and ability were our revelations. I didn't have words or even conscious awareness of that phenomenon at the time. But after this epiphany I had, which I'm about to share with you, it became abundantly clear that is how I had been experiencing and living through those first raw, tender, holy, impossibly hard moments of being an Abba. It was as if while the physical borders of my body ended at my toes and my nose and the crown of my head, there was another part of me, disembodied, over there, in that crib, picking up that toy, shrieking at 2 a.m. And then a sudden awareness. I don't remember the exact stimulus for it, but I remember being with her, being amazed by the miracle of her, and also being confused by her and the way she was doing things, even as an infant, that were so very, very different from me. And it struck me. She is not I. I know colloquially we'd say that she is not me, but I am my Father's son, and the verb to be is intransitive, and so the correct sentence is, she is not I. She's a different person, a different creature. We are bound, but we are distinct. And if that sounds painfully self-evident, I agree with you. Of course we're not the same. But in the moment, it felt like a comprehensive new clarity. That realization shaped and I hope improved my parenthood. Your child is your delight. Your child is your blessing. Your child is your burden. Your child is not you. I remember a similar quality of revelation about a decade ago. The topic of it was entirely different. But the amazement over something that truly seemed so elementary and fundamental felt the same. This revelation happened when I was in prison in Wales for sex offenders. How long should I let that sit and make all the visitors to this bat mitzvah squirm and wonder what kind of rabbi works here? I was there in a rabbinic role, to be clear. I have spoken and written about this briefly. I was with a mentor of mine that I had met on a meditation retreat. She lives in Wales. She visits this prison with some frequency to offer mindfulness experiences for the inmates, all of whom are male. My family was living in Oxford, England, and I had contributed some of my own Jewish approach to meditation on the retreat, including the use of song, nigun, as an ecumenical spiritual uplift. And this mentor invited me to spend a day with her at this prison. I rented a car. I drove from Oxford to Wales, beautiful drive, went through very strict security, and then I spent several hours in prison, getting to know men who have been convicted of rather heinous crimes, all of a sexual nature. I sat with them in a circle, and we sang wordless tunes and tried to beckon some serenity. We closed our eyes and meditated as I guided them deep into the self. I did one-on-one counseling sessions with many of them. Each of them, unsolicited by me, shared with me stories of abuse they had been the victim of in their youth. That factoid ought not exonerate them. One is responsible for one's own actions, even in the aftermath of personal trauma. But the factoid overwhelmed me. What kind of shot did these men have at a healthy, ordered life after what they suffered through? At some point in the day, this thought walloped me over the head and penetrated deep into my soul. And again, it may sound painfully and obviously true. These men are just as human as I am. They were just as innocent and pure at birth as I was. If there is such a loving God, which I pray there is, God loves these men as God loves me. These men hurt, they wonder, they regret, they dream, they are capable of joy, they are capable of meanness. We are so different, and we are the same. I share this memory with you as I'm now 72 hours away from beginning a sabbatical. A sabbatical informed and inspired by this moment in prison in Wales a decade ago. Though it was just one day, I sensed from that experience that I may have something to offer a population that is almost always judged in the severe negative, perhaps appropriately, but it's a population that is almost always underserved by well-meaning others. A population of sinners, perhaps even of evildoers, but a population of human beings who have not surrendered their right to be treated as such. A short caveat to say that one can have an interesting debate as to whether the most evil, the most criminal, the most violent, most psychopathic murderers who exhibit no remorse would also be in the category that I name, the category of human beings who deserve baseline compassionate care and attention. And while that's an interesting debate, and while I may wade into it a bit as I do some of my volunteering on sabbatical, including pastoring to inmates on death row in San Quentin, that dastardly category on the very edge of the incarcerated population is not the one I am describing or referring to here. I'm referring to flawed people like us, and who, unlike us, have done inexcusable actions likely causing irreparable harm to others, thus likely justifiably landing them in prison for both justice and to protect others. That's the population that I felt that day I had an urge to know, to see, and to whom to try to be of service. And nearly a decade later, I have that opportunity, thanks to this community's robust and generous belief in the notion of sabbatical, a time to pull back from the often relentless pace of this holy work, which I do love very much, and to step forward into my growth as a professional, into new ways of thinking and acting out the craft of the rabbinate, and to step forward into a zone of rest, restoration, repair, and recovery. Most of my sabbatical will be devoted to growing and offering myself as a chaplain, a pastor, through a rigorous interfaith hospital-based credentialing program called CPE, Clinical Pastoral Education, which I will do at a hospital in Springfield, Massachusetts, and through various chunks of time spent in prisons on the West Coast and East Coast, offering my time, my presence, my voice, my nigunim, my approach to mindfulness, and perhaps my wisdom and my counsel to prisoners of all faiths, creeds, races, and gender. I'm nervous about all of this because it's going to be a lot, but I'm also incredibly excited and honored. And that revelation I had in Wales, of course, it's nothing new.
Our tradition has known it and taught it for millennia. It began within the first words of the Torah, as we learned that every creation that emerged from the first creation carried with it the spark of the divine, the Tselem Elohim, the very form of God within him or her. And the idea carried through to the Mishnah in Sanhedrin, which warned that taking one life is like taking every life, because each life is of infinite divine value and worth. The idea penetrates Talmudic discussions on the morality of self-defense, even in situations of extreme distress, responding to the question of whose life you can take in order to spare your own, with this somewhat rhetorical question, Mi yemar didma didach sumak tfei. Who is to say that your blood is redder than another's? And the idea is palpable today on Shabbat Shkalim. The halachic and calendrical underpinning of the Shabbat, which is one of 4 special Shabbatot before and after Purim, is that our ancestors would be reminded by a special reading that their annual per-person tax was due now. So on this Shabbat, we read a special maftir rather than just repeating the last lines of the 7th Aliyah. You all witnessed it. We had a second scroll, which was rolled not to this week's Parsha Mishpatim, but ahead a few columns to Kitisa, from which Abby read the opening lines. And in those lines, we read that when the ancient Israelites conducted this financial census, Ze yitnu kol haover lapikudim machatzit hashekel. Everyone who goes through the counting gives a half shekel. That was not a lot back then, nor now. But whether it was a lot or a little is not the point. The point is that it was all the same. Ha'ashir lo yarbeh, v'hadal lo yamit mimachatzit hashakel, latet et shumat Adonai lechaper nafshotechem. If you are rich, don't give more. Don't take that too seriously. If you are poor, you can't give less. Everyone gives the exact same amount, a half shekel, as an offering to God to effect a ransom for their lives. That last line, to effect a ransom for their lives, is the translation of the scholar Everett Fox of the words lechaper al nafshotechem, which also could be rendered as expiation for your persons. The phrase seems to mean that it's what you owe to the community and to God to make good on the complex reality of being a person. A flawed, beautiful person made in God's image. And thus to God, a person just like any other person. Not more nor less. Not better nor worse. Not sinless nor completely sinful. Not innocent nor guilty. Just a person. How easy it is to forget this simple truth. On its own, these lines from Kitisa are a thunderous reminder of what I learned that day in Wales, and which I imagine I'm going to learn over and over again on this sabbatical journey. But the teaching becomes yet more powerful when this Shabbat happens like it does today alongside Parshat Mishpatim, which it doesn't always do. Parshat Mishpatim, which of course is a parsha about the rules that allow for civil society to exist. The verses we read today are replete with thou shalt nots, some of which come with very specific punishments. The Torah did see all people as created equally in the image of God. And the Torah also had very high expectations for human behavior. Else that divine spark could be abused, lessened, perhaps even forfeited. The Torah stood for capital punishment for both civil and sacramental sins. The Torah did not teach that we should just simply turn the other cheek and forgive malfeasance. That was a later book. The Torah is about duty and responsibility and what we owe to one another, to society, and to God. Mishpatim drives that home verse after verse. What you do with your ox, which is known to gore, or what you do with your pit, which endangers others, or what happens to you if you steal or if you kill. It's all exceedingly serious. And then the scroll is put away and another is placed down. And we are reminded and we remember that on some foundational and transcendent level, sinners are human and human are sinners. And the wicked were created by God. And those justly punished for terrible deeds remain worthy of divine beneficence, administered by God's messengers, us. Mishpatim sets the boundaries of society. Shkalim imposes upon those boundaries a heart. The notion of chesed, loving kindness. The reminder that we are asked and expected to judge and to love. To protect the innocent, but also to serve all of humanity. Mishpatim and Shkalim send me off to this journey. May I be worthy of the task. May I come back to you renewed, more skilled, more human and more humane. May I serve all whom I encounter with humility and with grace and with love.
You've been listening to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. If you enjoy these podcasts, we invite you to write a review on the Apple Podcast website or wherever you get your podcasts. For more information on Temple Beth Am, Los Angeles, please visit www.tbala.org.